welcome, Letitia. Lovely to meet you. It's
Thank
a
you.
gorgeous book. It came through the door the other day, and I just looked through it. Great recipes, gorgeous pictures. It just instantly transported me to Italy.
Yeah, I think the photography, I was really lucky with the photographer. I had a great photographer. And we were really lucky with the weather, which obviously makes a big difference to kind of capture that sunny image. I think we, in the beginning, when we were sort of talking about the conception of the book, the publishers were keen to do a sort of split of the shoot, with the majority of time being in London, but I just fought back with that, and I said the light here is so amazing, and we really should take the majority of the pictures out here, and eventually they sort of agreed with me, and I'm really glad that we all went through with that, because in the end I think you do get so much more of the kind of sense of the light and the colours and everything that I really wanted to capture. So, yeah.
And it comes across, it's very authentic, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. And we did do some studio shoots, and you know, I mean, the food stylist and the prop stylist did amazing things that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own, definitely. So I was just really glad that we had a balance of kind of the studio stuff, which was really, the focus was very much on like making the food look really amazing. And then we also had the location stuff, where the location just kind of spoke for itself. And Matt was he's great with light, and you know, I kind of dragged him out of bed every morning at dawn, so we would like go and and get these amazing shots with the sort of sun coming up and stuff. And he was very keen to make the most of the time, so I felt really lucky.
Yeah. And listen, tell me, so how does a girl from Devon end up in Sardinia?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. So I think, like, I was working in a restaurant in London. I'd kind of been in London for nearly 10 years, I guess, and I always knew that I wasn't really a London person, because you know, it was never my dream to end up in London. I always loved Devon. I loved living in the countryside. I felt very lucky to have had like a kind of Swallows and Amazons, like sort of, you know, Enid Blyton style childhood, just kind of running around climbing trees and stuff.
Not to mention all those lovely Devon afternoon cream teas.
Exactly, yeah. No, so I'm a big fan of clotted cream and cream teas. I know it's kind of twee, but I still love it. So I kind of knew that I didn't want to be in London, and I was a bit surprised that I was still there. It was kind of getting to that point where I was like, how am I still here, you know, 10 years later or whatever. And then I was in this restaurant job, which was very stressful, and I met this Sardinian guy, Luca, and we became a couple. I mean, we started off as friends, but then we became a couple, and I was sort of talking to him about what I wanted to do, because I knew I wanted to get out of being a chef, and definitely wanted to get out of London. And I said, you know, we could try and move down to Devon and set something up down there, sort of little cafe, restauranty thing, something sort of small scale and simple. And he said, well, I think Sardinia is actually a better option, maybe because, you know, the weather's better and there's more of a kind of tourism industry, and it has a lot of the same things, you know, kind of unspoiled countryside and focus on growers and good ingredients and producers and stuff, but with better weather and the sea as well. And he kind of sold it to me, so that was kind of how it ended up. And then I got here, and you know, sadly last year Luke and I broke up, but we're still friends, and I decided to stay, and for the foreseeable future. I mean, I still sort of dream about ending up in Devon maybe one day in my retirement, but for now I do love it here, and there are so many good things, and I'm so happy to learn a language as well. I love learning Italian, and it's become sort of a passion to really become fluent in that language. And I've always loved words, languages, you know, I mean, I studied literature and stuff, so it's just, it's really, it's great to have that that sort of incentive, because, you know, everyone sits at home and says, oh, I'd like to learn another language, but you know, when are you actually forced to do it? And obviously here I've had to learn Italian, and then I'm really happy that I have to, and I'm happy that I always have that motivation, because otherwise I literally can't live unless I speak Italian. So
yeah. I always think, I remember that's how I learned Italian, was living in Italy, and I just think it's just, you have that having no choice. And actually the Italians are always very forgiving. When you make a mistake, they don't speak to you English. They're really encouraging, I think. But in terms of in terms of your cooking, did you always know you wanted to be a chef?
I think I always loved food, and I come from a family that we all love food. My dad is a big eater, more than anything, not necessarily a big chef, but he, you know, and my grandmother was a big sort of influence in my life. Like, I think almost every chef or anyone that loves food always has a grandmother somewhere in the background who kind of inspires that love. And my grandmother was, like, my maternal grandmother was one of the best chefs I've ever met, and she was, well, I mean, she wasn't a chef, she was a home cook, but you know, she was one of the best cooks I've ever met, and she was very kind of inspirational to me, and she really kind of instilled in me that love of food and cooking, and she was quite a, like, she could be quite a scary person. She was very, like, dominating and kind of ballsy and quite bossy, but the way that she showed her love was through cooking for you, and I felt that was like something that was really special, that it was a way of kind of, it was a way of nurturing people and making people feel good, and I really loved that aspect of cooking, and I love that aspect of cooking now, and that's sort of my favorite part of the whole thing.
I was looking, I think one of the things I love about the recipes is they're just so accessible. You know, the ingredients, it's just a bit like what we do at Flavours as well. It's just simple ingredients, but really just with delicious flavours. I had one question though. There was one ingredient that I'd never heard of before, and I've never heard of sapa. Is that how you say it? Sapa. Yeah, I've never heard of that ingredient in all the years I've been working in Italy. What is it?
It's sometimes called saba as well. It's another one of those things which has about 100 different variations in its name, but it's basically the leftover grapes after they've been pressed. So, so after you've pressed the grapes for wine, then the leftover sort of mush that remains, you boil down and strain until you have this sort of black, thick, quite vaguely acidic syrup. So it's a bit like a, you know, I always say you can kind of try and recreate it by using like date molasses or grape molasses or something like that. But it's very sort of traditional Sardinian ingredient, in that it's a kind of inheritance of poverty. Like, it's making the most of something even after it's already been used. So you've already pressed the grapes, and then you go one step further and make another product out of what's left behind. So
yeah, it's a lovely recipe. It was grilled aubergines, saba, ricotta, salata, and mint. It just looks just gorgeous, really lovely.
It's a lovely combination. I really like that combination. I think people, I mean, I know I never really used to know what to do with aubergines, you know, pre-Ottolenghi. So it's nice to have a sort of aubergine recipe in there, which is something a bit different. I like that recipe.
I used to always grill my aubergines, but then once you've been in Italy so long, you've just got to fry them. There's no other choice. Can I ask, if you must have lots of favourite recipes in this book because there's so many, but is there one particular that stands out that you?
This is, I sort of pick a different one every time I'm asked this question. Sort of depending on the mood I'm in, but I guess that's a good thing, that it shows that I like all of the recipes. But I think one of the recipes that I definitely am very attached to is the pasta with butter and sage, which is just, I mean, it's probably the simplest recipe in the book, but it's the recipe that taught me how to make a sort of real pasta sauce, so making that kind of creamy emulsion where you finish the pasta with the sauce, because I grew up in a family where, you know, like my parents used to make spag bol, and it was like, you know, spaghetti and then a big puddle of the sort of the bolognese sauce on the top, and I never ate pasta where everything was kind of joined together in this really delicious, like, finished whole. And that was something that moving to Italy kind of, like, you know, blew my mind, that you mix the pasta with the sauce and it makes this amazing kind of creamy combination. And so I think that recipe really shows, like, such a fundamental part of Italian cooking, like how to, you know, finish a pasta sauce. And it's also just a very, very satisfying, very delicious, very buttery, which I love. You know, I love butter, so it's a good one for all of those things.
Because also, sometimes butter is not necessarily such a common ingredient in Italian cooking, is it really?
No, well, especially because even though it's always quite interesting that Sardinia is sort of classified as southern Italy, even though actually, like, geographically we're kind of halfway down. But the cooking is very much classified as sort of under the umbrella term Southern cooking, which means that mostly olive oil is the main fat used, and that's definitely true in Sardinian cooking. Is that it's very rare to find butter in recipes, but that's also why I like this recipe, is because butter is like very much part of the finished flavor and the finished dish. Like butter is the predominant flavor rather than just something that's like an ingredient that you don't really notice or you just use as sort of background. So I like that about it. Yeah.
That sounds delicious. And the title for the book, how did you come up with this lovely title, Bitter Honey?
Well, I thought, so I was sort of thinking about various different titles, and I was reading a lot. I read a lot of sort of literature about Sardinia and tried to find as much as I possibly could before I started writing, because I guess it's like kind of an inheritance from essay writing. You do all your research first and then you start writing. So, and I was reading a lot of stuff about what are these different ingredients which really kind of classify Sardinian cooking. And so there was saffron, and I thought about using saffron in a title, and there was definitely other ingredients, fregola and various things like that. But then I read about this bitter honey, which is sort of this honey which is very specific to Sardinia and is a really interesting ingredient and quite rare and quite sort of unusual flavor. And I just love the fact that there was that sort of, it was an oxymoron in itself, sort of honey is sweet, but this kind of honey is bitter, and Sardinia is a bit of a contradiction in itself. There are parts of it which are so sort of paradise-like, and then there are parts of it that are really obviously not, and life is like that as well. And I just kind of like that it was, that title was just this sort of microcosm of everything. So yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. I can't wait. Sardinia is the only region in Italy that we don't actually offer cooking holidays, and it's a region that we've been really keen to work in for years, but we just haven't quite found the right place yet. But I love to
really.
It's years. I visited years ago. We went to La Maddalena between Sardinia and Corsica, the island. It was really beautiful. It was really
La
beautiful.
Maddalena is a really nice place to go to as well, especially if you go by boat. It's very kind of magical. But I think Sardinia is a good, my personal idea, it's a very good place. It's a good place to do a cooking holiday. I think there's also some very kind of specific pastas which are really interesting, which I think people like learning and would like to learn. So I do think it's a good sort of holiday foodie destination, definitely.
And can I ask, what's life been like in Sardinia in lockdown? What's been happening?
So it's been, at the beginning it was pretty strange and quite scary, sort of, it's the town where I live. I don't live in the town, I live sort of outside in a kind of, in the sort of countryside-ish. But the town which I used to go in every day because I teach in this school, I teach English as well. And it's a kind of, busy everyday town with lots of people wandering around doing their shopping or going to the market or chatting. And it felt really odd. The first few times I went into town, it just felt like a ghost town. There was no one around. All the shops were closed, and it felt very sad. And I was really sad and worried for all of the shop owners and my little local pizzeria where I go every week, and they've become my friends. And I was really concerned about their business because they've been closed for like 3 months now or whatever. So it did feel very strange and quite sad, as I guess it has everywhere. And then it's sort of now. It's actually really nice because the restrictions have lifted here, and everybody is still wearing masks, but the shops are open again, businesses are open, the restaurants are open, and there's quite a sort of joyful, optimistic mood, I think. I went to a restaurant for the first time with my friend last weekend, and we were all celebrating, like the whole restaurant was like clapping and everybody was really happy, and they were all like, oh, it's your first day, auguri, auguri, and everyone was kind of raising their glasses, and like, I think everyone's just really happy to get back to some semblance of normality. And it's amazing because, people are incredibly resilient, and, like, it's not like it's the first time that people have suffered hardships, and I think, everyone is being really kind of supportive and optimistic, and I think people are making more effort to go out and eat in restaurants and buy the pizzas and support these people. So I hope Yeah.
We're just waiting ourselves so we can press the button, book a flight and get to Italy. It seems really strange. It's the first time in years that it's the end of June and I've never been to Italy. It's just really strange.
But the flights are open now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're starting. They're starting, which is really good. And lastly, so what's the next plans then? What's your next book? What's your next project? What are you thinking about?
Well, I literally just got an email from my agent this morning, actually, just before we got on the Zoom call, and she said, I think we're signing a deal for a second book now, which will be all sweet things, which is kind of based. Obviously, I'm based in Sardinia, so it will be, there will be some Sardinian things in there, but I would like to kind of extend the whole repertoire a bit. I would like to try and do some Sicilian classics, because Sicilian sort of sweets are very famous, and all those kind of things, and then some other sweets of my kind of own invention, but everything sweet, because I love the Italian sweet tooth, and I love the way that you eat cake for breakfast or gelato for breakfast. Big fan of sweet breakfast, so everything kind of sweet is the next one.
And I noticed in your tiramisu recipe you had brandy, because it's just different parts of Italy. I remember years ago in Lazio they always used sambuca for this tiramisu. It just depends where you are, what the alcohol is.
Oh really? I've never. Well, that would be an interesting. Yeah, I've seen rum as well. I've seen quite a few people using rum, but I don't like. Luca's mum had this devotion to brandy. Like, she used to put it in a lot of her other dishes as well. So I kind of inherited the brandy thing from her, and also because I'm always like, looking for budget ingredients, you can get very cheap brandy. So I think that's another reason why I'm a brandy devotee, because you can get very cheap stuff and it tastes fine. So in a pudding.
And you also reminded me, we used to always make ciambelloni often, actually. So I've got the ring tin arriving today, so I'm going to be making ciambelloni at the weekend, because I love it as well. It's so nice to have it for breakfast, and it's just
exactly. It's such a nice kind of simple cake. I think it's kind of Italian version of Victoria sponge, and I've got a soft spot for Victoria sponge, so I'm instantly attracted to that one. Yeah.
No, it feels almost like healthy cake. If cake is ever healthy, it feels like
it's so light. It's basically like bread.
Yeah, have lots of slices. But listen, congratulations on the book. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure our Flavours guests are going to be loving it, and it's been really nice to speak to you, and keep in touch. And
I will.
Good luck in all your adventures.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.